Part 23. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 221. This incident involved more than 5,500 people. Such a big incident spread throughout the world through media news in a short period of time. Li Qing and the other boys stared blankly at the TV. He looked at the calendar on the table unconfidently. Could it be that Lily forgot to turn the page? Today is the 21st? Did we do this? Didn't I say it was only for right-wingers? The boys all looked at each other in confusion. Brother, today seems to be the 20th. Ao glanced at the calendar. Maid, brother, it seems we have been beaten to the punch. Crow scratched his head and said. Just at this time, the host's announcement came from the TV. Lily, what did he say? Li Qing asked with a frown. Brother Qing, it was said on TV that this was caused by sarin gas. When Li Qing heard the word sarin gas, he suddenly remembered the terrorist attacks he suffered in his childhood in his previous life. Sarin. Li Qing muttered quietly. This is such a coincidence. I was planning to take action on the 21st. Who would have thought that this would happen on the 20th? I don't know if ghost worship and parades can still go on as usual. If such a big thing happens, everything in Tokyo may come to a standstill. Lily, please ask again whether the actions of the right-wing elements will continue. If they change, we will also have to adjust the time. Lily nodded after hearing Li Qing's instructions and hurried down to inquire about the situation. Shoto district is a famous wealthy district in Tokyo. Since the Meiji period, it has been a place where princes and nobles have gathered. In modern times, many political and business figures as well as famous gentry and wealthy businessmen like to live here. The environment is relatively quiet and very close to Dongda University. Even the grassland on the campus of Dongda University is the back garden of residents here. Most of the water sources in Songtao district rely on Songtao Reservoir. At night, a sneaky figure wearing a chemical protective suit quietly evaded the patrolman and came to Songtao Reservoir. He took out a tightly sealed jar from the backpack behind him and opened a crack with difficulty. Then he threw it into Songtao Reservoir. After doing this, he hurriedly returned the same way, as if he had never been there. Raimoto Gong is a typical extreme right-winger. His father is a Class B war criminal who invaded China. After the victory of the anti-Japanese war in China, he was executed by firing squad directly in China. He has always had a hostile attitude towards the Chinese. Why are you so happy today? His wife poured him a glass of water and put it in his hand. Drinking water in childhood is different from that in China. Chinese people like to drink hot water. On the contrary, they like to drink ice water and normal temperature water in childhood. There is always a water purification device at home, and you can drink it directly after preliminary filtration. Haha, Yukiko, today I signed another expulsion order against 3 Chinese Raimotomayas said happily. Yukiko knows her husband's temper. Anyway, he will do anything that is unfavorable to the Chinese, regardless of whether it is good for herself or not. Yukiko smiled, as long as her husband is happy, I'll cook for you. Raimotomaya took a sip of water and said, don't do it. I'm happy today. Let's go out to eat. 2 days later, Raimoto was lying in bed unable to sleep, and his wife also had a fever. Both of them were shivering and had already called the hospital. Since the hospital was doing its best to treat people suffering from sarin poisoning, there was currently no manpower available and they were asked to wait for 2 hours. But Raimoto knew that this was no ordinary cold, as ecchymosis had appeared on the skin of his wife's arms. My ankle also developed cyanosis and necrosis. I don't know how much time passed, but Raimotomaya felt that he was unconscious. He found that his wife next to him had turned black all over and exuded a foul odor. A day later, the doctor finally arrived, but by then it was too late. Are you sure this family called for help a day ago? The doctor wore a mask and looked at the two black and thin corpses in front of him. The serious shrinkage of the body, especially the necrosis, made him feel that the situation was not that simple. Normal human death would not decompose so quickly. It's not just these two corpses. There are many patients with high fever and chills in Songtao district. It seems that we need to consult, the doctor said to himself. But the situation was not what the doctors expected. The sarin gas took up too many medical resources. All available doctors in Tokyo are working hard to treat sarin gas patients. After all, time is life and all eyes are focused there. It wasn't until the third case of the Black Death that the Tokyo doctor's attention shifted slightly. Because the third patient was a member of the royal family, the hospital had to pay attention and immediately started a consultation with him. The Black Death. Plague. Impossible, the plague has been eliminated for many years. Besides, I have already used streptomycin, but it has no effect at all. Yes, if it is really plague, streptomycin will definitely be the effective drug. Several infectious disease doctors were discussing in the consultation room of Tokyo Hospital. Some thought it was plague, but streptomycin had no effect on this disease. A large number of other antibiotics were also used on the patients, but they could only delay the disease but not completely cure it. In the past 2 days, patients from Songtao district have been arriving, which has put them under great pressure. Even medical staff in the hospital have experienced varying degrees of high fever. According to doctors' understanding of the plague, the infection should not spread so fast. I think we should ask Mr. Matsumoto to come, after all, he is an expert in plague research. One doctor was silent for a while and expressed his thoughts. The other doctors were stunned when they heard this, and finally remembered the old professor who was over 80 years old and served in the legendary army. At least, let him give us a treatment direction. The others nodded. Speaking of that old professor, he was really lucky to get rid of the trial of World War II through various methods. The contributed research materials have been of great help to the development of Japanese medicine, and even made Japanese medicine far ahead of the United States, which has developed medicine in infectious diseases and brain research. 2 hours later, with the help of 2 doctors, Matsumoto, who was over 80 years old, walked to the patient in protective clothing. The patient's symptoms shocked him a little, and they were extremely similar to the log he had more than 40 years ago. He walked forward with a nervous look, opened the patient's eyes and looked at them, and then looked at the patient's tongue that was beginning to rot. Although he had protective clothing, he still stepped back a few steps. Number 40 Severe Plague. How could there be such a thing in Zaire? Hasn't it been destroyed? Matsumoto broke free from the support of the 2 doctors and shouted loudly. This damn thing killed tens of thousands of people in Xinjiang, Manchukuo. If it weren't for the order of the Major General to kill all the infected people, this plague would have caused the death of a large number of Zaire soldiers. Quick, quarantine everyone, otherwise it will be too late. Matsumoto said excitedly, grabbing his student's arm. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Banwanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 222. Teacher, what is the 40 grade severe plague? The doctor was also startled by Matsumoto's panic. I heard from others that this teacher participated in World War II and killed many Chinese. He has seen many patients, why did he panic after seeing this patient? Asshole, quickly notify the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department to block the entire hospital, and then report to the top leaders, there is no time. Matsumoto said anxiously again. He had no time to explain to others that this super severe plague developed by Zaire during World War II is highly contagious. Now everyone in Songtao district is probably infected. Even if he is wearing protective clothing, he dare not guarantee absolute safety. The plague they studied combines the characteristics of septicemic plague and pneumonic plague. It can be transmitted through fleas, water sources, air droplets, and other channels. In addition to complete isolation, there is no effective blocking method at all. The group also knew the seriousness of the situation and ran to make phone calls. At first, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department thought it was a false alarm. What era is this? Wasn't the plague extinct long ago? But Tokyo Hospital called again and again, and even called Minister Oda directly. What? Plague? Director Akamoto, are you kidding? Oda received a call from Ichiro Akamoto, the director of Tokyo Hospital. Director Oda, I'm telling you solemnly now, I'm not kidding. Now all exits of our hospital have been closed. Oda realized that Akamoto was not lying this time, and immediately reported the matter to the top management. Immediately sent people to Tokyo Hospital. Kitano and others received the order and responded quickly. After all, the sarin gas incident had just happened and many people were on standby at any time, fearing that such an incident would happen again. A group of doctors sat in the conference room of Tokyo Hospital. Teacher Matsumoto, can you tell us what the number 40 severe plague is now? Someone asked impatiently. This concerns the lives of everyone in the hospital. Some of the doctors who were with them just now have started to have a fever. If it is not resolved, these people are afraid that they will die here. Mr. Matsumoto, please speak. Matsumoto, since you know, please come up with a treatment plan as soon as possible. Please, Mr. Matsumoto, I don't want to die. Matsumoto sighed after a series of requests. The so-called number 40 plague is also called tiger plague. The person who named it hoped that it would be as rampant as the German Tiger tank. Number 40 refers to the number 40 experimental subject. In the winter of 1943, in the puppet state of Manhyukyo, Matsumoto seemed to be recalling the past, telling about the research on number 40 plague. He remembered that the number 40 experimental subject was a young man with a large frame. Due to long-term malnutrition, his whole body was skinny and his ribs could be clearly seen. Matsumoto injected different plague bacteria into him at the same time, including bubonic plague, pneumonic plague, septicemic plague, etc. He still clearly remembered the wailing of subject number 40 all day and all night. In order to get the super plague, he continuously injected streptomycin, penicillin, and other antibiotics to keep subject number 40 alive for a whole week, and also suffered for a week. Even when a big hole had rotted out of his abdomen, subject number 40 was still alive. It was not until he accidentally discovered from subject number 40 that the super bacteria with drug resistance combined with septicemic plague and pneumonic plague ended subject no 40's life. Now he still remembers the last words of subject number 40. Although half of his tongue has rotted, he can still hear it vaguely, "Little devils, you will be punished." A group of people fell silent after hearing Matsumoto's narration. No one spoke, and the conference room was very quiet. Ahem, but I don't regret it. For the Little Days Empire, I don't regret everything I did. Matsumoto cleared his throat and sat up straight. Everything he did was for the Little Days Empire. Yes, I support Mr. Matsumoto. If it were me, I would do it without hesitation. Salute to Mr. Matsumoto. A group of people didn't care about the crimes Matsumoto committed in China. Then Mr. Matsumoto, how to treat the number 40 severe plague, asked the doctor in the corner. Compared to shouting for the little country, he still cares more about his own life. When the others heard it, they also quieted down and looked at Matsumoto with burning eyes. Among the more than 10,000 people who died in Xinjiang, Manhyukyo, 1/3 were our soldiers. If there was a treatment plan at the time, they would not. Matsumoto felt sorry for the death of the little soldiers, and had no guilt for other Chinese who died of plague. When a group of people heard the news, they all looked pale and sat decadently on the chairs. But Matsumoto said with a smile. A group of people came to life again. But after the Xinjiang plague, I found a way to treat the number 40 plague. Matsumoto smiled mysteriously. A group of people were overjoyed. As long as there was a solution, they would not die. After all, this was a hospital with a full range of medicines. Matsumoto did not want to sue, and directly said, the combination of kanamycin and streptomycin. Kanamycin can inhibit the protein synthesis of plague bacteria by irreversibly binding to the 30's ribosome. Don't try it, I'm just making it up. In order to test this method, more than 10 experimental subjects died under his hands. And a lot of kanamycin is needed, Matsumoto continued. Don't worry, teacher, we'll get ready right away. A group of people were overjoyed and ran out to make arrangements. Hey, I haven't finished speaking yet. Matsumoto waved, but because his voice was too low, none of the excited doctors heard him. He hasn't told them the specific ratio yet, forget it, let's wait until they get the medicine. Young man, you are just not stable. Brother, I just received news that Tokyo Hospital has been sealed off. You can't enter or leave. As soon as Zhang Dongzhi received the news, he immediately came over to report. Li Qing was stunned for a moment. Can't enter? Anyone? By the way, my subordinate said that only patients from Songtao district are allowed to enter. It seems that the medical staff are all wearing protective clothing. Vehicles delivering medicine have been stopped and are not allowed to enter. Zhang Dongzhi scratched his head and said. Li Qing frowned and fell into deep thought. He knew that due to the sarin gas outbreak, large quantities of sarin gas antidotes such as apentol and prolidoxine were transferred from various places in his childhood. In this case, the medicine is not allowed to be sent to the hospital, which means that there is something more serious than sarin gas in the hospital. Did Kioxia succeed? Well, it's not impossible. Ao, let the young master go and see what's going on, and stay away. Let him take action if necessary. Ao nodded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 223. Oh, doctor, save me, I'm dying. The patient in Tokyo Hospital shivered constantly. The high fever of more than 40 degrees made him feel extremely cold, and his wrists and ankles began to turn black. Half of the people in the entire hospital had the same symptoms as him. A day ago, there was still someone to take care of him. Now the people in the beds next to him have died, and no one has lifted them. The whole ward was filled with painful wails. The medical staff couldn't do anything because they were also starting to get sick. Matsumoto trembled slightly as he walked through several wards, all with such wails, which was very similar to the laboratory of his troops in the puppet man Hyukyo. The difference was that they used to be Chinese, but now this hospital is full of Chinese people. Well, let's go, let's prepare the medicine together first, and hope that fewer people will die. Matsumoto shook his head and walked towards the dispensing room that the doctors had prepared. Arriving at the dispensing room, Matsumoto picked up the medicine, looked at the sunlight outside the window, and nodded. 2 antibiotics can be used together, but there is an important point. Other drugs must be used in conjunction with them. That is, Matsumoto felt something shining in his eyes from outside the window, like a small mirror. Before he could see clearly, a bullet shot into his eye socket. The sniper bullet instantly passed through the back of his head and hit the forehead of the doctor behind him. Matsumoto's head exploded like a rotten watermelon, with red and white splashing everywhere. The doctors were stunned for 2 seconds before they reacted. They screamed and fell to the ground with their heads in their arms. The young man on the rooftop in the distance, chewing gum in his mouth, muttered, "Little Razai, Can you see me from such a distance? And you're making random gestures at me. Since the eldest brother asked me to act according to the situation, I'll kill a few little Rizai first to satisfy my desire. Since he listened to Lily's translation last time, he wanted to kill a few little Rizai to satisfy his desire. This opportunity is rare. I have to brag to Bezu when I go back. After all, this guy boasted a lot when he made the bomb. The doctor in the pharmacy carefully crawled to the hospital corridor, then leaned against the wall and breathed a sigh of relief. Who is it that actually assassinated Professor Matsumoto? I was so scared. How could such a thing happen? What should we do now? We only know that there are 2 antibiotics, but we don't know the specific ratio and other auxiliary drugs. It's a pity. It would be better if Teacher Matsumoto could tell us. A group of doctors were discussing in a panic, and slowly everyone stopped talking. The whole corridor was filled with only the wailing coming from the ward, like hell. Despair spread in the hearts of these doctors. The downstairs has been completely taken over by the police, and no one is allowed to enter or leave. If the antidote on their side cannot be developed and the best treatment period is missed, everyone in the hospital will die. Or, should we follow Professor Matsumoto's previous practice? A hesitant voice sounded in the quiet corridor. Others looked at the person who spoke in astonishment. Dean Akamoto, you. The person who spoke was Ichiro Akamoto. Although he was the dean, he was not very old, only in his early 50s. I don't want to die. Do you want to die? Akamoto touched the bruises formed by bleeding in the subcutaneous tissue on his arm unnaturally. The other doctors looked at each other, and they also began to have symptoms, not far from the stage of high fever and chills. No one is allowed to tell this matter. Dean Akamoto is also for everyone. Suddenly someone took the lead to support Akamoto's decision. Then everyone else nodded. They didn't want to die. Okay, now we sneak in and take out the medicine. He didn't know whether the sniper in the distance had left, so it was better to be careful. The brave doctor crawled in and took out the medical equipment and medicine. Now we start to mix the proportions. You remember your own proportions, and start the injection from Ward 12. Remember to be responsible for your own ward, observe the patient's condition, and be sure to experiment with the best plan. Akamoto gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice. As for taking the Zairai people as experimental subjects, he didn't think too much now, just wanted to keep himself alive. Akamoto looked at the other doctors and took the lead in taking the medicine he had mixed into Ward 12. There were 4 patients in the ward. The first one to be infected was now black and purple, and the others were in the middle and late stages of the disease. Akamoto could only endure the discomfort in his heart and began to inject them. I'm afraid no one would have thought that the super plague they created decades ago using Chinese people as experimental subjects. It would fall on their own descendants again. This is probably the so-called cycle of justice, retribution. After injecting the medicine, Akamoto sat dejectedly in the corridor, and the other doctors had not returned. Night slowly fell, and darkness gradually enveloped the entire hospital, making him breathless. The doctors slowly walked back to Akamoto one by one. Well, where is Dr. Tokugawa? Akamoto looked around. There were less than 10 people in total, and only the doctor named Tokugawa had not returned. Dean Akamoto, Tokugawa, he seemed to say he wanted to escape. A doctor raised his hand and whispered. Damn it, he will kill us. Matsumoto has reported all the hospital situations to Zairai's top management. Unless they prepare a special medicine, we can't get out. Papa, a crisp gunshot sounded outside the window. Akamoto hurried to the window and looked down carefully. I saw that the doctor named Tokugawa downstairs had fallen to the ground, and his blood slowly infected the ground. Boom! The personnel wearing protective clothing sprayed the flamethrower directly on Tokugawa's body. He was so frightened that he crouched down quickly. The others were also pale and extremely frightened. Dean Akamoto, I don't want to die. Let's continue the matching. There are still many patients who can be used as experimental subjects. Yes, please act quickly. I feel that my upper body temperature has increased. Please, we must find the best ratio. Baya looked at the still burning corpse with a livid face. He didn't understand why the higher UPS issued such an order. They actually asked for anyone who walked out of the hospital, including animals, to be shot. Large amounts of pesticides were even sprayed to prevent the spread of bacteria through insects. Minister Oda? Do you really want to do this? Kitano couldn't bear it. Oda, who was sitting in the car, sighed, Kitano, this is not my order. I haven't received any news from Professor Matsumoto for 2 hours. Professor Matsumoto specifically ordered that if there was no news from him within an hour, it would prove that the specific drug formulation had failed. This is the only way to eliminate the super plague. But Minister, there are a lot of people inside, and these people all have to. Oda shook his head, whether they die or the whole of Tokyo dies, Kitano, what will you choose? Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 224. Therefore, Akamoto and others were in vain, and everything ended at the moment of Matsumoto's death. It is impossible for Zai not to know the information about the severe plague number 40. Some experts and scholars from Zai came to a conclusion after intense discussions. If there is no specific medicine, the best way to prevent the super plague from spreading is to treat it harmlessly, just like what the army did in Xinjiang, the puppet Manchukuo. At this time, Akamoto and others were frantically conducting experiments for their own lives. At first, it was just a ratio of 2 antibiotics, then 3, 4. At the time of life and death, people are completely crazy. These doctors, whose mission was to save people, have become executioners like their fathers. The difference is that their butchers are no longer Chinese, but people from small lives like them. The patient's whines, cries of pain, and curses were just like before, but they still couldn't arouse their conscience. How about it? Akamoto stared at several doctors with bare eyes. It works, but it's not obvious. The direction is right, keep going. But the patient is almost dead. Only then did they discover that due to the use of a variety of antibiotics, the patient's weak bodies had developed allergic reactions, and a large number of people had died. Oh, go ahead. As long as we can develop a special medicine, everything will be worth it. I believe Amaterasu will forgive us. Akamoto sighed and instructed the others to continue. Until dawn gradually dawned, Akamoto, who was feeling confused, heard a loud shout. Dean Akamoto succeeded. After the patient was injected with the drug, his blood oxygen level increased, his breathing became stable, and his body temperature began to slowly decrease. The doctor who was trying to find the best ratio said excitedly. Great, give us the injection quickly. The few remaining doctors began to inject according to the proportion. Half an hour later, Akamoto looked happy and said, it really works. His temperature began to slowly drop, and the other doctors felt it too. Very good. It works. Long live, you can survive. Akamoto glanced at the excited doctors. Gentlemen, Professor Matsumoto used more than 100 experimental subjects when studying the number 40 severe plague. We developed a specific drug and only a few dozen patients died. What a great achievement. All the doctors were stunned when they heard this. Dozens, nearly 100 people died on the 8th and 9th floors of the ward alone. Alas, others did not wait for our special medicine. I am very ashamed of this. Now everyone understood what Akamoto meant and all agreed. Yeah, I feel guilty as a doctor. It's a pity. It would be nice if they could hold on a little longer. Time is also fate. Akamoto smiled and pressed his hand down to quiet them down. Okay, Let's go and treat other medical staff and living patients. The senior management will definitely commend us in our small days. The special medicines heaped up with human lives have indeed worked, and patients with symptoms have begun to improve. Akamoto also dialed Oda's phone number. Minister Oda, we have developed a special medicine. Oda was in the car downstairs of Tokyo Hospital with a look of surprise on his face. Real? Yes, all medical staff have done experiments on their own bodies to ensure it is effective. Okay, then come out. Xiao Tian put down the phone, his face immediately darkened, and he nodded towards his deputy. The deputy nodded and hurried out. Kitano, who was taking a nap in the car, apparently heard it. It's so great that we have found a special medicine. Dean Akamoto is really amazing. Oda glanced at B and saw that B didn't speak. He just stood quietly and looked in the direction of the hospital entrance. Not long after, Akamoto walked out of the hospital door with all the living people. Breathing in the fresh air, Akamoto felt that his decision was right and it was good to be alive. The people behind him also looked like they were surviving the disaster. With so many people dying in the hospital, they were really lucky to be alive. Minister Oda. Akamoto waved to Oda in the distance. But Oda didn't smile at all and looked at him blankly. Akamoto thought he didn't hear, so he took a few steps forward and pushed aside the cordon. Suddenly, many people wearing masks and protective clothing rushed out from behind Oda. He picked up the rifle in his hand, and before Akamoto and others had time to react, bullets penetrated their bodies instantly. Kitano was stunned by the situation in front of him. He didn't know why Minister Oda did this. There was already a special medicine. Minister Oda, you are crazy. They have developed a special medicine. Kitano stood in front of Oda and asked loudly. Different from the bright red blood, dark blood flowed out of the fallen body and instantly filled the ground. Oda ignored Kitano and just waved. The personnel with flamethrowers came forward instantly and started spraying the corpses on the ground. At this time, Akamoto was not completely dead. He couldn't believe that he would be treated like this, even though he had worked hard to develop a special medicine. In the end, it was all in vain. Watching the flames slowly coming, he fell into darkness. Yeah, there is no special medicine at all. If there were any special medicine, decades ago, the more than 4,000 imperial soldiers in Xinjiang would not have. Oda realized that he had slipped his words and stopped talking. Special medicine, the most effective medicine is harmless treatment. Let's not question the instructions from the top management. We will begin harmless treatment of Tokyo Hospital tomorrow. One day later, news about a fire in a Tokyo hospital began to be broadcast, and detailed data on casualties were being tallied. In the end, the top management of Zaire suppressed the number 40 severe plague incident. The purpose is simple. If the plague incident spreads, it will attract the attention of China, and the severe plague number 40 cannot be concealed. This contradicts the fact that Zaire has always denied the existence of Unit 731, and the number 40 severe plague will also become evidence of Zaire's invasion of China. This is what the top right-wing officials do not want to see, because they have been downplaying and beautifying aggression. When Li Qing and others saw this news, they all smacked their lips at Zai's cruelty. You see, Zai is just an uncivilized human being, even so cruel to his own people. Li Qing pointed to the content broadcast on the TV and said. The outcome of the plague incident did not meet his expectations, but he did not feel regretful. It was just a casual move, and it was already very good to achieve this level. Although the number of deaths in the hospital is unknown, Li Qing's own guess is that there must be many. As for how much he didn't care, they were all young people anyway, and at least a lot of right-wingers in Songtao district must have died. Brother, are you still going to do the next step? Crow was a little unhappy. After all, the plague didn't break out, so what he expected didn't happen. Wait for news from Lily. Gas bombs can be most effective in a confined space. Li Qing said quietly. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 225. The sarin gas incident and the number 40 severe plague incident have made Zaire executives realize that they are most likely to be targeted by terrorist organizations. So security has been tightened, and there are now twice as many police patrols on the streets as before. A high-level meeting on a small day. Please tell me why the plague from 40 years ago happened in our country. On a small day, the head of the Defense Department yelled at Oda. Xiao Tian, you know that sarin gas killed 14 people, but what about the severe plague incident no 40? Everyone is tight-lipped about the death toll of the number 40 plague incident. But everyone knows that such a death toll under peaceful circumstances is shocking. If the Prime Minister had not personally ordered it, this matter would not have been suppressed. Sir, this matter is most likely related to the Chinese terrorist organization. People in Zaire are not stupid, and it is obvious that this is a typical act of revenge. Otherwise, who would use the specific bacteria studied on the battlefield 40 years ago? Isn't the anthrax used by international terrorist organizations even more powerful now? China? Is there a terrorist organization in China? It's possible that the Red Army was responsible for the sarin gas. The head of the Defense Department gritted his teeth and said. The senior officials who were familiar with him rolled their eyes. Ever since the wife of the head of the Defense Department died in the Red Army hijacking incident, he had been keeping an eye on the Red Army organization. All sorts of charges were pinned on the Red Army. Xiao Tian also stared down at his leather shoes speechlessly, looking like he was being taught, but he was full of curses in his heart. What about the Red Army? What happened to the Red Army after you suppressed it? I can't even afford underwear. Even the leader humming ran abroad. Finally, after high-level discussions, it was unanimously decided to start the investigation from the sarin gas case. After all, there were witnesses to the sarin gas case. There is no way to investigate the severe plague case number 40. Even if we know that Songtao Reservoir is the source, there are no witnesses and there is no surrounding surveillance. How can we investigate it? Shangju Village, a gorgeously decorated manor. Genmo looked at his subordinates with a blank look on his face. We were also responsible for the plague in Tokyo Hospital. He didn't remember asking his men to do this. Several of his subordinates looked at each other with confused expressions on their faces, and shook their heads at the same time. What a fool, how can you combine the investigation of sarin gas and plague? Apparently Genma also had insider information in the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. He received the news not long after the higher UPS issued the order. Why are you grabbing the shit basin randomly? It's so lax, Genma said angrily. Then he said, it seems that we are going to continue the operation. This operation did not succeed in diverting the attention of the Metropolitan Police Department. Now they are still investigating us. After saying that, he looked at his men again. Now they are on guard. Next month, we will launch another operation. You go down and prepare. Several subordinates knelt down and left in a hurry. Unfortunately, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department acted extremely quickly and found clues to the poisoner in just one day. Although they were dressed very carefully, wearing hats, windbreakers and masks. But there were many witnesses in Tokyo, and the police quickly targeted them. Hiroshi Inu, Kenichi Nakagawa, Hikaru Shinken, the only thing these people have in common is that they are in the same organization. This organization is also the illegal organization we were investigating some time ago. I have reason to suspect that the sarin gas incident was caused by this illegal organization. Kitano stood in front of the projector and pointed at several photos on the screen. Senior officials attached great importance to the investigation of the sarin gas incident, and at the same time deployed more than 5,000 police officers to assist the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department in investigating the incident. In the end, he lived up to expectations and found clues to the poisoning in a short period of time. The clues pointed directly to a notorious illegal organization. The police acted quickly and found the raw materials for making sarin gas in the warehouse in Shangju village. This organization's charges were truly confirmed. And he caught Yuan Ma, who planned everything, in the secret room of the manor. Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, interrogation room. Tell me, in addition to the sarin gas incident, you were also responsible for the plague incident. Kitano asked angrily. He can still recall the scene of Akamoto and others dying in front of his eyes. There are also black and shriveled corpses in Tokyo hospitals. He was so angry that he slapped the table hard, startling Genma. The plague incident you mentioned has nothing to do with me, Genma said truthfully. Fart, isn't it you or who? If you want to incriminate yourself, why bother, Genma said in Chinese. The big boss outside the interrogation room was even more convinced that Genma was the initiator of the plague incident. Who in the ordinary life could speak Chinese? Well, there's no need for a trial. The sarin gas incident is enough to sentence him to death. The chief of the defense agency and the top brass of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department breathed a sigh of relief that the case was solved so quickly. At least their hats were saved. Brother Ching, the right-wing parade and ghost worship activities have been cancelled, but they plan to hold a morning event for the sarin gas incident. Lily told Li Qing what she had learned. Li Qing frowned when he heard this. The sarin gas incident completely disrupted his plan. The sarin gas incident has had a great impact internationally. In the past 2 days, there have been reports about the incident everywhere. The government acted quickly in the early days, and there was an antidote for sarin gas, so the death toll in this incident was not high. 5,500 people were injured and 14 people died. Brother, how about we take action during the morning event, Ao suggested in a low voice. Li Qing thought about it carefully. It's not appropriate. The morning event is outdoors, and the lethality of the gas bomb is not great. Besides, after the sarin gas, Xiao Rizai's security must have been upgraded. His guess was correct. During this morning event, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department arranged 2,000 police officers for security. The feasibility of the plan is almost zero. Alas, what a pity, Crow shook his head. Although the plague incident caused a lot of trouble to Xiao Rizai did not dare to make it public for many reasons. The main reason was that everyone wanted to solve the fish that slipped through the net of World War II, and the plague incident still made them feel unsatisfied. Even Li Qing felt a sense of unsatisfaction, as if he had punched cotton, which made people feel no sense of accomplishment. Forget it, the action in Tokyo will be suspended for now, but we can go to Miyazaki to do something. Li Qing suddenly remembered the Hakko Ichiyo Tower in Miyazaki Prefecture. Since it's not possible to do something in Tokyo, it's better to find another way. He has long been dissatisfied with this evil tower. Dongziu, please arrange for all of us to go to Miyazaki Prefecture tomorrow, except for Aja and Yamamoto. Li Qing chuckled. Crow scratched his head, not understanding his brother's operation. Brother, why go to Miyazaki Prefecture? Is there a Jingguo Shen toilet there? Li Qing laughed. Why go? Go move bricks. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 226. Moving bricks, everyone looked at each other, and no one could understand what their eldest brother meant. But since the eldest brother has arranged it, they can just follow it. The next day, the group got on a plane to Miyazaki Prefecture. 2 hours later, Li Qing and others had arrived in Miyazaki County. Instead of sightseeing, he led everyone directly to the hill more than 60 meters northwest of Miyazaki County. Batai Park. Crow read, pointing to the park plaque. Hungta Park, don't fool around with women, and read more books, Li Qing said with hatred. No, brother, I thought the word after 8 was Japanese. Crow forced his respect and said. Can you please tell me that there are such complex and connotative words in the language of my childhood? The slightly more complicated ones are all in Chinese. Zhang Dongzia glanced at the crow and said. Then he explained, the word Bahong refers to the farthest places in all directions, and generally refers to the world. Good guy, straight up good guy. Even Qiu Gongao and others quietly gave a thumbs up to Zhang Dongziu. It is not easy for a Korean to understand so much. Li Qing also nodded appreciatively. See what you can do, Crow muttered unwillingly. Let's go in and take a look. The group of people followed Li Qing into the park. The park here was no different from other places, with nothing more than trees and fitness equipment. Not long after entering the park, I saw a tall tower standing on a high platform like a blade. The direction of the blade is facing the west, which is the direction of China. This is the 8 Hongyao Pagoda. Let's go and take a look. Li Qing said in a deep voice. Everyone also heard their eldest brother's tone becoming serious. Although they didn't know why, their expressions became serious. After climbing up the stairs and walking for a while, Li Qing and others finally saw the entire tower clearly. Li Qing took the lead and stepped forward, carefully looking at the stones at the base of the tower. Everyone also stepped forward curiously, wondering what their elder brother was looking at. Brother, this is... The crow looked horrified and pointed at a line of small words under the stone, Showa 17, taken from the top of Mount Tai. The words are in Japanese, but Crow can also understand the general meaning through a few Chinese characters. Others also hurriedly looked. In the 18th year of the Showa era, it was taken from Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum in Nanjing. In the 16th year of Showa, it was taken from the Great Wall of China. In the 17th year of Showa, it was taken from Lushan Mountain in China. In the 19th year of Showa, it was taken from the Governor General's Palace of Korea. Brother, these stones are all taken from... Zhang Dongzia pointed to the writings on the stones with a shocked look on his face. Li Qing nodded, 8 Hongs and 1 universe means the world is one family, and co-prosperity with the little devils Greater East Asia means the same thing. His heart is to be punished. Everyone looked at Baxianyao Tower with anger on their faces. We have a total of 238 stones from all over China. Just when everyone was immersed in anger, a group of tourists came over talking and laughing. This group of people is obviously from China, and most of them are elderly people wearing yellow hats and holding plaster flags. The young girl in front is a tour guide, smiling and explaining something to the tourists. Lily, translate, what did she say? Li Qing glanced at the little tour guide with a proud face. Lily nodded and began to translate in a low voice, this is the 8 Hongyao Pagoda. Most of the tower's bases come from China. Among the 372 stones at the base of the tower, one was plundered from Sakhalin, 123 came from North Korea, and 238 came from China, accounting for 64%. There are also stones from Canada, Peru, Singapore, and the Philippines donated by Japanese expatriates. These elderly people all exclaimed and praised the prosperity of the empire's martial arts. Look, this stone was brought back by my grandfather from Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum in Nanjing. The Chinese army resisted fiercely at that time. My grandfather killed more than a dozen Chinese soldiers in that war. The little tour guide proudly pointed to the stone road with relief carvings. There are also Huangshan stone and Taishan stone, these are all stones from the areas occupied by imperial soldiers when we were young. It's a pity that the intervention of the United States made us fall short. Otherwise, I might be working as a tour guide in Mount Tai now. The little tour guide made a joke, which made the elderly people laugh. But Li Qing and his group looked livid and stared at the little tour guide. The crow even wanted to step forward and tear her into pieces. The 8 Hongyao Pagoda was built to suppress China's national destiny. Didn't you notice? Although our empire was defeated, our economy developed rapidly. China, on the other hand, is experiencing local wars and turmoil, and now there are even people who don't have enough to eat. This is all the result of the 8 Hongyao Pagoda. The young tour guide explained, and the group of elderly people nodded. Since the 1980s, the small economy has developed rapidly, and in the 1990s, the economic strength has reached the top 10 in the world. It is simply unbelievable that a defeated country could develop to this extent in just a few decades. Haha, Li Qing couldn't help laughing. The laughter caught their attention, and the little tour guide came over dissatisfied. Please respect the soldiers of our empire, these are all their contributions. Lily, isn't she afraid that the 8 Hongyao Pagoda will be demolished by the Chinese? After hearing this, the little tour guide raised his head arrogantly. The role of the 8 Hongyao Pagoda is supported by the senior management of Xiaoli. The Hachione Yudama Tower was built by the great Onmyoji family, the Abe family. It is usually guarded by the Black Dragon Society, and it is very close to the police station. Do the Chinese dare to demolish it? The little tour guide glanced at Li Qing with disdain. She knew these were Chinese and looked down on them from the bottom of her heart. Li Qing chuckled. It seemed that this little tour guide was quite confident about the safety of the 8 Hongyao Evil Tower. Crow and the others saw that the little tour guide was disrespectful to his elder brother, so they stepped forward one after another. What are you doing? I have already called the police. You should leave quickly. When the old men and women saw that the little tour guide was going to suffer, they picked up their mobile phones and started dialing 110. Li Qing waved his hand and organized the actions of the younger brothers. But Lily went up unceremoniously and slapped the little tour guide on the face with two big mouths. The little tour guide was stunned for a moment. In her impression, Chinese people never hit back or retaliate when scolded. He didn't expect that the Huiguo woman in front of him would dare to hit him. Ah, you're dead, you late-paying pig, the little tour guide looked at Lily viciously. Upon hearing this, Lily couldn't bear it anymore, so she grabbed the little tour guide's hair and tore it back and forth. Lily, who was born in Mamasang, is very good at fighting with women. She is very good at pulling out her hair, pulling her mouth, and scratching her face. At first, the group of tourists wanted to step forward to help. Unexpectedly, Wu Wu and others stepped forward and pulled up their clothes to reveal the colorful tattoos, which scared the group of people and did not dare to move. Returning martial arts to prosperity, bah! The crow spat disdainfully. Yeah, my grandfather is the elder of the Black Dragon Society. You pigs are just waiting. I'm going to kill you. The little tour guide, whose hair had been shaved off by Lily, covered his cheeks where he had been scratched a few times and roared angrily. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 227. Black Dragon Society? Elder. Li Qing chuckled nonchalantly. Crow and others also laughed. It seems that this Black Dragon Club is not that good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a little tour guide. Although the little tour guide couldn't understand what these Chinese people were talking about, she knew they were definitely laughing at her. Just wait, as long as you are in Miyazaki County, I can't spare you. The little tour guide broke free from Lily's restraints, covered his head and ran towards the park entrance. She even ignored her senior group, and now she is filled with hatred and must take revenge on these Chinese people. Let's go, we'll come back tonight. Li Qing said softly. He decided to come over at night to demolish the tower and remove all the stones belonging to China. Under the guidance of the senior group, the group left Bigzuntai Park. Then find the best 4-star hotel in Miyazaki Prefecture, Sheraton Miyazaki Ocean Resort. Yes, The best hotels in Miyazaki Prefecture are 4-star hotels. Ao and others, under Li Qing's instructions, went to buy some tools. After all, it was not easy to remove these stones. "Grandpa, do you care or not?" The little tour guide placed the soft tissue directly on the arm of an old man with white hair and good spirits. This is Ichiryu Kawashima, the patriarch of the local violent gang Black Dragon Association in Miyazaki Prefecture, who is also the grandfather in the little tour guide's mouth. Kawashima Yulong put down the teacup in his hand and sighed, "What trouble have you caused again? This little honey of mine is really non-stop and keeps getting into trouble every 3 days. I have wiped her butt 3 or 4 times this month. It's just a group of Chinese tourists who bullied me. You can see that I've become bald." The little tour guide showed half of his bald head. Kawashima Yulong glanced at him, with a flash of distress in his eyes. This Xiaomi had been following him for several years. Because he didn't want to keep her at home all day, he occasionally let her go out to do her previous job. "I didn't expect that I would be beaten like this after not seeing him for a day. It was simply unbearable for my uncle and unbearable for my aunt. What's more, he was a Chinese, and he didn't know how many Chinese died at his own hands." "Really Chinese?" Kawashima Yulong asked with a frown. "Grandpa, it's true. I'm sure they are all Chinese." The little tour guide gritted his teeth. "Somebody come. Kawashima Dano. Send someone to check if there is a group of Chinese in Miyazaki County." "There is probably." Kawashima Yulong glanced at the little tour guide. The little tour guide beamed with joy. "There are about 10 people." "Well, there are about 10 people. Report them to me after you find them," Kawashima Yulong said solemnly. "When he really finds out that the other party is Chinese, he will teach them an unforgettable lesson." When he thought of Chinese people, he thought of the glorious past, when he had left great military exploits in Nanjing, China. "It's a pity that I can only tell my story secretly to my tour guide and others at home." "Wait for the Black Dragon Club boy to walk out the door." The little tour guide sat astride Kawashima Yulong with a happy face. Kawashima Yulong looked at the little tour guide in front of him with a lewd smile. "Clean up tonight and let's do some new things." The smile on the little tour guide's face gradually became forced. She knew that her godfather no longer had that ability. The new project also referred to sexual abuse, and it was a very perverted kind. A look of resentment flashed through her eyes. They were all those Chinese people, and if they wanted her to suffer such torture, she must have seen those people being beaten with her own eyes. As night falls slowly, the bustling Bahuntai Park becomes deserted. The wind blew through the rows of trees, making a somewhat eerie whine. Li Qing and his party took a car to Bahutai Park. Crow stepped forward and used hydraulic pliers to cut the chain at the door, and Li Qing walked out first. There are street lights in other parks, but I don't know why there are no lighting facilities in this park. It is so dark that it makes people feel uncomfortable. There was only the light source of Crow and Ao's flashlight, which made people feel a little safer. "Let's go." Li Qing led a group of people towards the towering 8 Hongyu Tower in the distance. The hoot of owls in the forest nearby made people feel a little scared. Lily tightened her tight clothes and quickly hugged Li Qing's arm. There was only the sound of people's footsteps. Ta-da da. In this silent night, it seemed particularly obvious. The young master looked around and could vaguely make out the big trees in the distance. He felt that the hand holding the tool was shaking slightly, and he had to admit that he was a little nervous. It felt like the beads of sweat dripping from his forehead to his lips were cold. What the hell kind of place is this? It's so permeable." At this time, even the bold Zhang Dongzhou secretly muttered that there was something evil in this park because he felt someone was blowing cold wind on his neck. After walking for a long time, Li Qing frowned and stopped. When everyone saw the elder brother stopping, they also stopped. "Brother, what's wrong?" Crow asked, stammering in a low voice, feeling inexplicably flustered. "Wrong," Li Qing said in a deep voice. "What's wrong?" Everyone was a little curious. We walked 1,256 steps from the park entrance. Take a look at the 8 Hongyu Pagoda. Li Qing stretched out his hand and pointed in the direction of the 8 Hongyu Pagoda. Everyone looked in the direction of the 8 Hongyu Pagoda, and their expressions suddenly changed. The direction of the Bahongyu Tower has changed. They were obviously walking in the front direction, but now they can only see the side of the tower. But they were clearly walking in a straight line, without turning. Crow was sweating coldly, shaking the flashlight in the direction of the Bahongyu Tower. I really saw a ghost. It would have been fine if Crow hadn't said the word ghost, but as soon as he said the word ghost, everyone except Li Qing got goosebumps. I felt a chill rushing to my head. Li Qing was silent for a while, staring at the Bahongyu Tower in the night, and snatched Crow's flashlight. Let's go. The light shone directly on the Bahongyu Tower. He didn't believe that there was such a weird place here. The light of the flashlight could not shine very far, and only the outline of the tower could be vaguely seen. Da-da-da, the footsteps echoed in the silent park, making everyone feel uneasy. It stands to reason that these people have more than one life on their hands, so they shouldn't feel fear. But for some reason, in such an environment, they felt like they were stripped naked, with no sense of security at all. After walking for about 3 or 4 minutes, Li Qing stopped again. "Brother?" Iao asked curiously. "We are standing still." Li Qing's words made everyone's hair stand on end. Looking at the shadow of the Bahongyu Tower in the distance, it was indeed. It was the same as before. They had clearly walked for 3 or 4 minutes. How could this be possible? Humph. Li Qing groaned, and the sound spread in all directions, and the hum sound became louder and louder. Seeing this, Li Qing stepped heavily on the added stone slab with his right foot, and a roar sounded, and everyone covered their ears involuntarily. When he opened his eyes again, he found that behind him was the iron fence at the entrance of the park, and the chain that Crow had cut was placed on it. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value. I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 228. Haha, good, good. It is indeed the evil tower that I spent a lot of effort to build in my childhood. Li Qing turned his head and looked behind him, then glanced at the vaguely visible 8 Hongyu Pagoda. This tower was more difficult than he thought. "You think you can stop me like this?" Li Qing said seriously. "They are all stepping on my footsteps." The younger brothers all echoed. Bang! Li Qing stepped on the ground. Footprints more than an inch deep instantly appeared on the stone slab on the ground. Bang! Another step. Just like this, step by step, the dull sound of heavy objects hitting was heard throughout the park. This is indeed working. At least the Hakiyu Pagoda visible to the naked eye is getting closer and closer. The faces of all the younger brothers also showed joy. It seems that this evil place is just a small defeat for their elder brother. But Li Qing didn't think so. He frowned, feeling that there was something strange about this park. Suddenly a gust of wind blew, and a whimpering sound sounded in the woods. Li Qing, who was walking in the front row, suddenly felt as if something invisible was passing by his side. His touch won't lie to him, it's smooth and cold. Roll. Li Qing's sudden angry voice sounded, and the green eyes of the tiger tattooed on his chest flashed. The angry shouts floating around gradually turned into tiger roars. The tigers roared continuously, and in the distance, a stone ball suddenly cracked open at the base of the 8 Hongyu Tower. Everyone felt that the tiger's roar dispelled the cold air, and their joints became much more flexible. In this way, everyone followed Li Qing step by step until they reached the steps of the tower base. Huh! The group of people breathed out a sigh of relief at the same time. This place is too evil. Let's go up. Li Qing didn't say much and led a group of people up the stairs. The journey went smoothly without any problems. The group of people also let go of their worries. Nothing happened until we reached the base of the tower. Okay, let's start taking action. Li Qing stroked the bricks of the great wall under the base of the tower and said. Crow and the others flexed their hands and feet, took out tools and began to carefully pry along the gaps in the tower base. Fortunately, there are stones from other countries, otherwise it would be really difficult to deal with. After all, the eldest brother requires that Chinese stones not be damaged. Pa! The young master cried out in pain. It turned out that the blade of the cutting machine broke and hit the young master's hand. What the hell am I? I was a profiteer in my childhood. I obviously just bought it. The young master cursed as he grabbed his bloody palm. Be careful, Ao quickly came over, tore off a piece of his clothes and gave him a simple bandage. The crow curled his lips. You can't poop, so you blame the earth for having no gravity. This requires skill, and of course you can't do it recklessly. Look at me, you learn, ouch, me. The hammer in Crow's hand hit his hand directly, and his fingers were visibly swollen. Now it's the young master's turn to laugh at the crow. Li Qing next to him frowned, feeling something was wrong. One time might have been an accident, but 2 times. Ouch! Zhang Dongzhou startled everyone with his voice. It turned out that Zhang Dongzhou didn't hold the tool firmly and hit his feet directly. A group of people looked at each other and immediately stopped what they were doing. 3 of them were injured before even one damn piece of stone was removed. Something's wrong, stop it first. Li Qing waved his hand, making everyone stop. He slowly walked to the base of the tower, clenched his fist tightly, and then punched the base of the tower. He clearly felt a force that instantly transferred his strength. You must know that this is 5 times the strength of an adult. Li Qing felt that the power did not hit the base of the tower at all. This was the first time he encountered this situation, which reminded her of the little tour guide's words that this tower was built by the Abe family of Onmyoji. Is it Onmyoji? Li Qing muttered softly. Sure enough, there are 2 brushes. He knew that he was destined to return in vain today, so he raised his head and glanced at the towering Bugzuyayu pagoda, and said in a deep voice, take your things and let's go. Brother, how about we try again? Crow knows that his eldest brother Li Qing really wants to take down the tower. Li Qing shook his head when he heard this. We can't get rid of it. Come back next time. We have plenty of time. Everyone else sighed. It was the first time they had encountered such a helpless situation. It's so weird here. From the very beginning when I entered the park, first I walked in circles, then ghosts hit the wall, and now I have been experiencing bad luck one after another. Maybe there is something unknown behind. All this was beyond their imagination. The group of people followed the footprints they came from and returned to the park entrance step by step. They suddenly felt a sense of frustration that they had never experienced before. Li Qing looked at the dejected crowd and smiled calmly. What? Are you discouraged now? You guys, what does this mean? Zhang Dongzhou turned his eyes when he saw his eldest brother looking confident. Brother, you must have an idea. Goshiu, what he said is absolutely true. Crow learned the lesson and quickly agreed. Li Qing turned his head and glanced at Baxianyayu Tower. Oh, it's very simple, use magic to defeat magic. Everyone looked at each other and said, magic defeats magic. When they returned to the hotel, everyone was still muttering about what Li Qing said. They knew every word, but no one understood them together. What exactly is magic? Li Qing didn't leave them wondering for a long time, and started making arrangements for Zhang Dongzhou when he arrived at the hotel. Dongzhou, contact Qiandan and ask him to invite Hong Bao, the most famous Feng Shui master in Hong Kong, to come. The money doesn't matter. A gleam of light flashed in Li Qing's eyes. Damn, Yin Yang master? Can he beat the Feng Shui master of our ancestors? In fact, when he was in the park, Li Qing had already realized that something was wrong, especially the trees were too dense. Although it is normal to have trees and flowers in ordinary parks, it is abnormal to plant only one kind of tree, locust trees. That's not right. Besides, people who live a simple life don't like locust trees at all, they only like cherry trees. In such a park, there is no cherry tree, which is a bit unreasonable. Li Qing doesn't understand feng shui, but his five senses are sharp, and he feels very uncomfortable there. Zhang Dongzhiu's eyes lit up when he heard Li Qing's words. He had known about the feng shui of China for a long time. He and the young lawyer even asked a feng shui master to look at the house. Okay, big brother. I'll contact them right away. Well, are you sure there are more than a dozen Chinese living here? The little brother of the Black Dragon Society asked the hotel front desk. The front desk seemed to recognize him and whispered, indeed, they all have long-term residence permits and speak Chinese. We haven't had so many Chinese here for a long time. More than a dozen Chinese appeared in Miyazaki Prefecture, and they were not in a tour group, which really attracted attention. Okay. This time I deserve to be credited. When I get promoted, you won't have to work so hard. The little brother of the Black Dragon Society touched the face of the hotel front desk frivolously. Hate it, it's better this way, otherwise I'll lose my job and you won't be promoted. I won't lose a lot. The hotel front desk knocked the gangster's hand away. The gangster put on sunglasses and looked upstairs, sneering, wait for my good news. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 229. The two chapters yesterday were very controversial. Let me explain here. They won't be immortals, they won't be fantasy, they won't be supernatural, and there won't be any messy things. If everyone doesn't like these plots, I will speed up the process. In Xiangjiang, Zhang Qiandan received the order from his eldest brother Li Qing. He didn't dare to delay for a moment and quickly took his younger brother to visit Master Hongbao. People in Xiangjiang generally believe in feng shui. Especially the rich in Hong Kong not only need feng shui masters to decorate the furnishings of their companies, residences, and rooms. Even the location of your own office needs a feng shui expert to take a look. Zhang Qiandan met Hongbao, a famous feng shui fortune teller in Hong Kong. Hongbao, who studied under Master Xiao Yuan of the Sanyuan sect, was particularly good at the successive Tian Shui method, which is to use the mountain topography as the main subject and cooperate with the surrounding water to determine good and bad luck and break the yin and yang. Little friend, why are you here? Hongbao looked at Zhang Qiandan and others, his face changed slightly. Of course, with his ability, he could tell that all of these people were filled with evil spirits, and their eyes were full of viciousness. They were obviously from the world. Master Hong, please forgive me for taking the liberty of visiting. This visit is because of my elder brother's request, and I specially invite you to visit Xyli. Zhang Qiandan said respectfully. Master Hong frowned slightly. The man in front of him was so evil, so wouldn't his eldest brother be? Oh? May I ask who your eldest brother is? Hongbao nodded and asked in a deep voice. New World Li Xin. Hongbao frowned even more tightly. Of course he knew about this uncrowned king of Xiangjiang underground. From the beginning of Li Qing's career in Mongkok, Hongbao had been high above Mongkok, and there was a vague shadow of a white tiger waving its teeth and claws. Later, as Li Qing's power grew, various ferocious birds and beasts continued to appear behind the white tiger's shadow, covering the entire Xiangjiang. But it did no harm to the entire Xiangjiang. On the contrary, it blocked many external forces for Xiangjiang. Hongbao cupped his hands and said, I've admired you for a long time. I wonder if Mr. Li, if you invite me to go to Japan, do you need my services? Although he was reluctant, he didn't want to offend Li Qing. After all, Feng Shui masters are also human beings. 8 Hongyao Pagoda. Hong Bao's pupils shrank. Of course he had heard of this evil tower in Japan. He had also read information related to it, and even knew some of the mystery inside it, but he did not dare to accept this matter. "I'm sorry, I can't help you with this matter." He offended Li Cheng. He would probably go to Singapore in the worst case. If he offended Xiao Zi, it would be useless for him to escape anywhere unless Hua Guo protects him. "Oh, Master Hong, are you sure? There are very few people in Xiangjiang who can refuse the New World." Zhang Qiandan narrowed his eyes, his tone was threatening, and a look of anger flashed across his face. Hong Bao gritted his teeth, bowed slightly, and cupped his hands. "I'm sorry, I really can't help you with this matter. Please come back." One thing he didn't say was that if you wanted to destroy the 8 Hongyao evil tower, you would have to commit murder. Those of them who are good at Feng Shui believe in cause and effect. If they kill someone, they are not far away from death. "Okay, Master Hong, get ready to move." Zhang Qiandan didn't say anything harsh and turned around to leave with the others. Hong Bao sighed. The only reason he could survive for so long was to protect himself wisely. He would never dare to intervene in such a Feng Shui battle between the two countries. "Come here, pack up, let's go to Singapore." He didn't dare to go to Wanbei. Li Qing's power was so great that it was slowly overshadowed. Only Singapore was considered safe. Zhang Qiandan was in a very unhappy mood as he walked out of the door. "If you haven't completed the task ordered by your boss, how can you explain it?" "Brother Qiandan, why don't you tie him up and take him away?" his subordinate asked with an idea. Zhang Qiandan shook his head. He tied him as much as he could, but he was afraid that this bitch would cause trouble to his elder brother when he was young. "Alas, I have to look for other Feng Shui masters." The gangsters from the Black Dragon Society came to the headquarters. "Mr. Kawashima, we have found out that he is indeed Chinese, but he has a long-term residence permit from Japan and is currently staying at the Sheraton Resort Hotel." The gangster bowed respectfully and reported. Kawashima Ichiro raised his eyebrows slightly after listening to the report. "Oh, they are really Chinese. It's interesting. I didn't expect Chinese people to be so brave. I'll give you a mission. Take someone to capture this group of people and bring them here. My goddaughter wants to watch them be tortured. Don't worry, the benefits will be yours." Kawashima smiled and touched the little tour guide kneeling at his feet. The little gangster showed joy on his face and immediately bowed. "Please rest assured, Mr. Kawashima, I will definitely do it." After saying that, he immediately walked out of the door. This time it was his turn to take the lead. He was not worried at all about whether he could capture this group of Chinese. As long as he gestured with his knife, these people would definitely follow him back immediately. The Chinese girls who came to travel last time were so well behaved and didn't resist at all. He thought of the Chinese women he violated last time and licked his lips, feeling a little unsatisfied. He called a few boys and rushed towards the hotel. At this time, Li Qing and others were sitting by the swimming pool, blowing in the wind, and eating barbecue comfortably. They hadn't been so relaxed for a long time. Anyway, they regarded this trip to Miyazaki Prefecture as a trip if they had time. "Shiuer, roast a kidney for me," Crow said with a smile. Zhang Dongzhou continued to grill the steak sizzling on the iron plate with both hands. Hearing Crow's words, he rolled his eyes. "Take the processed kidneys out of the box and place them on the iron plate." Damn, he was the only one among more than 10 people barbecuing. These people said that Korean barbecue was delicious. Don't believe them. Huh. Zhang Dongzhou saw 7 or 8 gangsters in fancy clothes coming over from a distance. "Crow, something seems wrong over there." Crow looked in the direction of his sight and frowned at the people coming. "Brother, someone is here to cause trouble." Crow walked in front of Li Qing and whispered. Li Qing, who was dozing, opened his eyes without even looking at him. Well, take care of them. Crow nodded. Young master, Dijon, someone is here to cause trouble. Let's go and have some fun. After saying that, he picked up the knife on the table and walked towards the gangsters. The other two heard it, picked up the fork and walked up with a smile. The gangsters were in high spirits. They shouted something in the room and rushed over waving their baseball bats. Crow and others chuckled and rushed over. Although there are only 3 people here, they are all good fighters. They were ruthless, hitting either the eyes or the genitals. Anyway, they were all aiming for the vital parts. Although they were hit by a few sticks, they were not injured. In less than a few minutes, the gangsters fell to the ground and wailed, each of them covering their eyes or bending their legs. It was obvious that their tendons had been torn. Crow dragged the gangster who led the gang to Li Qing, and the man's left eye had obviously been blinded by Crow. Blood flowed out from the seam of the hand covering his left eye, and he kept wailing. He was cursing, but Li Qing only understood one sentence. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 230. Lily, ask him who sent him and what he wants to do. Li Qing lay on the recliner without even raising his eyes. Lily communicated with the gangster in Japanese and shook her head. Brother Qing, he won't say. Huh. Zhang Dongxiu, who was grilling meat, grabbed the gangster's collar without saying a word, held his head in his hand and pressed it heavily on the iron plate. Sizzle! The gangster's face made a sizzling sound under the frying oil. The screams resounded throughout the small square, and it was fortunate that AO booked the entire square restaurant for fear of being disturbed. Otherwise, someone might have called the police now. The other gangsters lying on the ground were so scared when they saw this scene. I thought it was an easy job, but now not only is my leg tendon broken, but it looks like I might leave something behind. A minute later, Zhang Dongxiu let the gangster go. Half of the gangster's face was already black and mushy, and he was trying to get away from the devil Zhang Dongxiu. He said something loudly in Lily's direction. After a question and answer exchange between the two, Lily finally figured out the origins of these people. Brother Qing, these are all from the Black Dragon Society. Black Dragon Society. Li Qing frowned. He still remembered what the tour guide said. It seemed that the grandfather of this tour guide was a veteran of the Black Dragon Society. Lily translated the words of the gangster accurately. After listening to Lily's words, Li Qing and others nodded. It seemed that everything was related to the tour guide. Since there was nothing to say, Li Qing waved his hand, get rid of it. The gangster looked at the big men approaching them in horror, and threw them into a truck not far away. Then Jin Dazhong and others picked up a handy dagger and walked into the carriage with a grin. Yama. Before they finished speaking, several people had their throats cut, and the whole dark carriage was filled with the gurgling sound of blood flowing into the trachea. Brother, this Black Dragon Society, should we transfer people here? Zhang Dongxiu asked in a low voice. If we transfer people now, the impact will be too great. We may be targeted by the cops who are living a low life. Transfer a batch of arms here, and when we finish our business, we can kill them all. Li Qing felt that the most important thing now was to get rid of the Bahongyu Tower, and everything else could be put aside. I don't know how Qiandan is preparing. There is no news yet. Is there any variable? Hong Kong, New World Headquarters. John Qiandan was worrying about how to report to his brother. He was ashamed that he couldn't do such a small thing. Damn, this Hung Bao is really ungrateful. Dong dong dong, the knocking sound made him even more irritated. Why are you knocking? Come in. Brother Qiandan, someone is looking for you outside. They say it's the descendant of the Lai family. It seems to be a feng shui master. The younger brother saw John Qiandan's gloomy face and said in a low voice. Huh. John Candon scratched his head. Lai family? Hello, my name is Lai Buliao, the descendant of Lai Gong's Five Elements School. I came uninvited this time, sorry for the hassle. Lai Buliao pushed aside the younger brother and walked in. Hey, go out, I haven't asked you to come in yet. The younger brother hurriedly wanted to push Lai Buliao out. Wait, you go down first. John Candon looked at Lai Buliao in front of him, and he looked familiar. He looked a bit like an undercover agent who was buried by him. Do you have brothers and sisters? I am a single descendant of the same lineage, and I have never had any brothers. Lai Buliao, who is a bit young and claims to be a Feng Shui master, said. Brother Lai, do you have something to do with me? Boss, aren't you planning to find a Feng Shui master? I came uninvited. Lai Buliao smiled mysteriously. John Candon was wondering in his heart, could it be that Hong Bao said it? He was too bold to leak this matter. He was considering whether to kill that person. Haha, Zai and I have a blood feud, so don't guess blindly. Lai Buliao smiled as if he saw through John Candon's mind. John Candon glanced at Lai Buliao. Mr. Lai, please wait a moment. He walked out the door and quickly called his eldest brother Li Cheng. Hello, brother. This is what happened. After listening to John Candon's words, Li Cheng lowered his head and thought, this Lai Buliao seems a little familiar. But he must be a famous character in the Hong Kong movie in his previous life. Oh? Hong Bao is not coming? Then never come. Let this Lai Buliao try. In this situation, there are still people who want to protect themselves, which is really ridiculous. If you don't stand on either side, then there is no need for you to exist. John Candon nodded after hearing the instructions of his eldest brother Li Cheng. After hanging up the phone, he didn't dare to delay and immediately arranged for Lai Buliao to go to Zairai Miyazaki County. As for Master Hong Bao, he was blocked at home by the younger brother of the New World. He thought he was quick enough, and spent several hours packing up and planning to leave Hong Kong. But the moment he saw John Candon again, he knew that everything was over. Master Hong, I'm sorry. You already know the secret that you shouldn't know, and you choose not to stand on our side. I have no choice but to make you shut up forever. Hong Bao's face was livid, and his fingers trembled. I won't tell anyone about this. John Candon shook his head. Master, don't be naive. There is only one kind of person in this world who can keep secrets, and that is the dead. This matter involves my eldest brother. I'm sorry. Hong Bao regrets it now, thinking that he should have agreed in the first place. He never thought that protecting oneself wisely would lead to disaster. In fact, from the moment he learned about this, he had only one way to survive, and that was to side with Li Cheng. It's just that he didn't understand it clearly when he was in the middle of the game. I'm afraid there is no better Feng Shui master than me in Xiangjiang. I'll go. John Candon glanced at the so-called Feng Shui master with contempt. It turned out that the master was also afraid of death, but now it was too late. It's too late. Lai Buobu, the descendant of the Lai family, has already left for a small life. Legia. Hong Bao laughed miserably. No wonder he made such an unwise choice. It turned out to be Lai Buobu, a Feng Shui sorcerer. Let's go, master. Hong Bao shook his head. After all, it was not destiny, and fate was not as good as fate. As soon as Leibu arrived in Xiali, he was picked up by the Aoki group and sent to Miyazaki County, along with a batch of arms, of course. It wasn't until he came to the hotel that he met the legendary New World boss Li Cheng. I saw Li Cheng sitting on the sofa, with Crow and others standing behind him. Looking from a distance, Lai Buobu seemed to see a huge white tiger squatting there, with some raptors and ferocious beasts behind him. He felt his eyes sting. While he was looking at Li Cheng was also staring at him with burning eyes. It turns out it's him. Haha, It seems that this is the famous Feng Shui master Li Buobu. Although Li Qing had never heard of it, he still had to speak tactfully. After all, the person in front of him was really capable. Boss Li, you're welcome. I'm Li Buobu, a Feng Shui warlock.